Hello there, I love the PS2. For me, it's the generation that properly made me into a gamer. The gigantic library, spanning all kinds of genres and styles, seemed never ending, and it seemed like the list of quality games was increasing by the day. Because of its rich library, most people only enjoyed a fraction of it when the PS2 was in its heyday, so we're now looking back and playing the games they missed. That's great, but on modern setups, the PS2 can look pretty rough. When using a modern HD or even 4K TV, it will try and upscale the graphics, and it can end up looking like a blurry, pixelated mess. Even the best games that take full advantage of progressive scan and the component cable just don't look that great. So if you still have your PS2 collection, what's the best thing to do? Well, one option is to keep an old CRT television. Games look still alright on that kind of monitor. Another option would be to use some sort of upscaling device to make it look better on a HD TV. If you're like me though, and just want to enjoy your library without much fuss, then emulation is the way to go. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not using any downloaded games in this video. Everything you'll see I captured from my own discs that I still own. I hadn't tried out PS2 emulation in a few years, so I wanted to see where it got to. I downloaded the latest version of PCSX2, the 1.5, set up all the settings and started trying some games out. Today, we're going to take a look at 7 random games, just to take a look at how they play, what they look like and if they hold up. I was originally going to do comparisons with each game to the original PS2's output, but that ended up making the video too long-winded and technical, and it's not really supposed to be about that. On screen now though, is some I captured from my PS2 directly, so keep that in mind when you see the following. Dragonball Z has a gigantic amount of games, as you may know if you saw my video on the top 5 Dragonball Z games I did a while back. One of my absolute favourites though is Budokai Tenkaichi 3. It's a fighting game in the style of the other Tenkaichi games, in which you control characters from all of Dragon Ball's many series and movies from behind the shoulder, battling it out across large maps that feature levels of destruction. This game has over 161 characters, including transformations, and unlike the newer games, each character can freely transform in a match, meaning you have access to all of Frieza's transformations for example. It's a really great game, and I think still the best DBZ fighting game. If only Xenoverse 2 could have matched this one. So let's talk about how it looks. Coming out in 2007, it was released quite late in the PS2's lifespan, so it was able to utilise the hardware pretty well. This means that the character models and battlefields were already nicely rendered, with good clean graphics on the PS2 to start with. Because of this, when rendered at 1080p, they look really great, managing to capture the anime style excellently. There is a slight bit of tweaking you have to do with PCSX2 to get this to work. You have to change the texture offsets to 500 each, or the outlines won't match up, but once that is done, the game plays absolutely perfectly. This one worked out really well. I do think I might need to tweak the settings a little bit more, but at the minute, I'm really happy with it. Shinobi came out in 2002 and is a 3D action game published by Sega and developed by Overworks. I have fond memories of when this game was released, as that red scarf was a particular stylistic choice that stuck in my mind, and when I first saw the game being played, I was really impressed. I was really impressed by the physics on it. Realistic physics in games are only just starting to become a big thing. The PS2 has so many action titles that games like this have been overshadowed by ones like Devil May Cry and God of War, which arguably did it better, but there is still a lot of charm to be found in this kind of adventure. It looks alright in HD. The character models and enemies all look really clean, and because of the stylish nature of the game, they look great. Unfortunately, the scenery can still look pretty muddy. Increasing the resolution that poor textures are rendered at can't do much if they were never good to begin with, and this is the case here. Still, it's definitely a massive improvement over playing it natively. Now this one blew me away. Onimusha is a series that I adored during the PS2's heyday, and I think it's long overdue a revival. Not long ago, Capcom released a HD version of Onimusha 1, and that got really great reviews, and I'm assuming sold pretty well. The Onimusha series takes place in feudal Japan, in which mythology and samurai clash in epic battles of the heavens. Onimusha 2 is my favourite in the series. It's expanded on everything that worked in the original, whilst keeping to what made it great. In HD, it just looks awesome. The pre-rendered backgrounds upscale really well, and the character models just look so sharp. This one looks like it was made to be a HD remaster, and it plays flawlessly in emulation. I think this game looks really great on the native PS2 too, so if you still have a PS2, I'd highly recommend buying this one. This is probably the least well known game on this list, but I chose it because I wanted to take a look at a first person shooter. It's a spy shooter game with a 70s vibe, similar to Austin Powers, and it's got a great tongue-in-cheek tone to it all. It suffers from some uneven pacing by today's standards. Fun missions can be bogged down by ones which are a bit of a pain, but overall, it's fun, and when it came out, many people considered it to be the best first-person shooter since Half-Life. In HD it looks good. It doesn't look amazing, but everything upscales nicely and looks sharp. No One Lives Forever still has a bit of a cult following, as the strange publishing and trademarking deals around it have left the series infamously in limbo, with nobody quite knowing who owns the rights to the games, so it hasn't been able to have a proper re-release. This is one of the few on this list that was actually available on PC to start with, so that might be a better option, but it is a good example of what PS2 games look like under the surface. Soulcalibur III sucked up so much of my time when it came out. It just felt so expansive, every character having multiple costumes and weapons, the arcade mode for each character having a big story, the option to create your own characters and take them into strategic battles, and more. It was an absolute joy to play, and one of the best 3D fighting games ever made in my opinion. It's a good job then, that looks so good rendered in HD. The character models were already really well made and designed, looking pretty advanced for their time to begin with, so in HD, the game almost looks as if it is at the level of a PS3 or Xbox 360 game. There was one random bug. Whenever I fought against a doppelganger in the arcade mode, they ended up just flying straight out of the ring. I don't know if that has something to do with my disc that I own, which does have a few scratches, but it was pretty funny when it happened. I wanted to span as many different genres as I could with this video, so I thought it only prudent to show an RPG, and what better RPG to show than one of the best ever made in Dragon Quest VIII. Dragon Quest VIII takes place in a large world, with loads of characters and items and quests to undertake, with a really fun and engaging story. Dragon Quest is one of the few series that has always managed to remain close to its roots, with each new entry in the series really just expanding the graphics, but keeping much of the gameplay and music essentially unchanged. It's the polar opposite to Square Enix's other RPG series Final Fantasy, which is completely reimagined every time a new one comes out. Dragon Quest VIII looks fantastic in HD, with the increased fidelity really bringing out the character in Akira Toriyama's designs, showcasing little nuances and emotions that wasn't apparent in the lower res. These kind of anime style graphics just seem to really sparkle in HD, and they end up just popping out of the screen. If you're into RPGs, I highly recommend you give this one a look. Rumble Roses is the type of fighting game that you're embarrassed to like. When it came out, many people accused it of doing what people accused Dead or Alive of doing, just putting scantily clad girls in a ring, applying some jiggle physics to their various parts, and calling it quits. Whilst the character designs do seem to imply that's what Konami had in mind, in actuality, I think it's a really fun game. It takes place in a melodramatic fighting tournament, with loads of twists and turns, and a crazy plot about scientists and super soldiers, and ends up feeling more like an anime series than a video game. The gameplay is simple yet rewarding, and slamming opponents is always fun. In HD, it looks good, and I think it looks sharp and works really well, with no slowdown to speak of. It's a fun fighter, and you don't get too many of this kind of game nowadays, that are just fun arcadey romps, but the HD resolution really gives it a new lease of life. So that was just 7 games I chose to play today. If you liked this video and want to see a part 2 in which I delve further into my library and play another 7 games, let me know in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. If you have a suggestion for something that you'd like to see, let me know too. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share the video, leave a comment, tick the notification bells to get notified of anything I do in the future, as well as follow me on Twitter if you like. Thanks for watching. Goodbye!